I mean, this is history. This was a historic game, and it may very well be the end of an era. First up, we've got Penn State, Illinois. We're going to go through each of the games. Well, we got 3 games. First up, Penn State, Illinois. We got 5 minutes for each game.
Looking for some bigger prey. They're hungry for that bigger win, and this could be it. If they can take down Penn State. I said, nevertheless. Why did I say I said?
The former 3rd string, now 2nd string quarterback. And people on Twitter are talking. Should he be the starter now?
Good evening, Michigan fans. Welcome to Michigan Chatter on the Big Ten Team Rivalry YouTube channel. Tonight's episode is a special one. I hit the microphone. Hopefully that didn't come through. I'm excited. Tonight's episode is a special episode because Michigan has reset the clock. They've won the national championship. It has now been 1 day since Michigan has won the college football national championship. Wow. We're going to be covering that, going over some statistics and stuff like that. Just some crazy, wild stuff going on in the game. Going to set my timer so I make sure I don't go over on this video. But I am wildly excited to do this. Unfortunately, Cliff, it's weird to call him by his name because he's my dad. My dad, Cliff, is not going to be able to join us tonight, but we're going to try again tomorrow, put out another video, and he'll be there for that one. So we'll get to revel in some national championship glory for that one. But as for tonight, I'm going to nerd out on some statistics here, and boy, oh boy, we're going to have some fun with these stats, or at least I am. So first off, I guess I just want to give a couple of thoughts on the game itself. Strange game, not going to lie. Kind of a weird game. If anything, it proves that defense still wins championships, right? Michigan's defense came into the game nationally ranked as, I believe, literally the first overall defense statistically. Certainly in points allowed per game. They allowed 10.4, 10.5 points per game. That was number 1 in the nation. I believe in most other defensive statistics, they were ranked near the top. And it showed. It absolutely showed. So I've got some stats that I'd like to go through for the national championship. They're kind of out of order because I was trying to write these down, and Dad's way better at structuring the shows. I'm way better at nerding out about things or just getting really excited and saying ridiculous things. I don't know. So defensively, Michigan completely shut down Washington. And that wasn't without a little bit of help from Washington. I don't know where to start, so I guess I'll start from the beginning. The first quarter was all Michigan. Just all Michigan. Donovan Edwards comes out of nowhere. He's been largely dormant the entire season. He's a team guy, obviously. He needs to be a team guy to not transfer, despite Blake Corum essentially getting literally all of the spotlight. Maybe he's staying because he knows next season he's going to be running back 1. That's entirely possible, and I think he probably will be. But Donovan Edwards comes out of nowhere and puts up back-to-back 40-plus yard touchdowns. Huge, just insanely huge. The first touchdown, he actually ran into traffic and then had to stop, take a step back, and go to the left, and then ran around 10 guys, 10 of the 11 defenders that were on the field for Washington, and then just takes off to the end zone. Beautiful, beautiful sight from him after the first option wasn't there. Being able to go to that second option was just awesome. Great job there. The second touchdown run, wide open hole. Michigan's offensive line just parted the red seas, the white seas, if you will, getting literally every Washington defender out of the way for Donovan Edwards to just right up the field and score another touchdown. Second quarter, not as great for Michigan. And it's really funny because the FPI, ESPN's FPI, win probability peaked in the second quarter until late in the fourth quarter when Michigan was up by like 2 or 3 scores at that point. It peaked in the second quarter at 92%, and then slowly but surely starts to trickle into Washington's favor well into the fourth quarter, about halfway through the fourth quarter. And it was really weird because for some reason Michigan, so they were running the ball extremely well, but credit to Washington because Washington threw in the adjustments. Washington had to make those adjustments to stop Michigan from running, and it was pretty clear that's all Michigan wanted to do in the first quarter, which was fine. They were averaging something like 20 yards per carry, close to 20 yards per carry in the first freaking quarter. They put up 200 yards of rushing offense in the first quarter. It's insane. So with that being said, credit to Washington for making those adjustments. The thing is that it was kind of weird, and I'm going to credit Tom Fernelli and Bud Elliott from the Cover 3 podcast for this. I think they were spot on. I was kind of thinking this last night while watching the game. Michigan kept wanting to go from their running plan over to passing game. And I'm not entirely sure why, because it was clear at that point that the running game was working. So you kind of want to stick with something until it just doesn't work anymore. And it felt like Michigan bailed from the running game before Washington had fully adjusted to stop it, because they thought Washington was going to adjust to that a lot sooner than they actually did. So they kind of helped Washington out in a sense there by shifting away from that faster or sooner than they probably should have. I think if Michigan continues running the ball into the second quarter, it's a 21-3, maybe even 24-3 game at half, and then already kind of out of hand at that point. But they didn't. They shifted over to the passing game. And JJ McCarthy, for as good of a quarterback as he is, he's not quite as polished as you'd like him to be. He can definitely step up when needed. And he did last night. He absolutely did. He had a couple of clutch throws. One that set up that touchdown that was basically the nail in the coffin in the fourth quarter. But he wasn't sharp. He didn't really have that good of a game. He had something like 140 yards passing on 10 completions, which is actually 14 yards per completion. So that's not bad, but you definitely want to see something better from your quarterback in a national championship game. The thing is that Michigan's defense was way too good for Washington to take advantage of that. That competition there was a little bit weird because Washington also kind of shot themselves in the foot a few times. So I'm thinking in the second quarter, they had a wide open, I would think it was a fourth down conversion that they were going for. Romo Dunze, I think was the, I can't remember the receiver who was wide open on that fourth down, and Penix just overthrows him. Now Penix overthrows him for a couple of reasons. One, Penix didn't have a good night. He's a phenomenal quarterback, but he didn't have a good night last night. And that's unfortunate. You know, he's a great quarterback. I wanted to see him play well. Obviously wanted Michigan to win, but wanted to see him play well. In any case, Penix overthrows him, and that was kind of the story of the game. Michigan's defense, Michigan's defensive line did not give Washington the amount of time that Penix needed to properly position the football. And then once Penix got injured, it looked like he broke a rib. I was texting my buddy, and my buddy said, if you look at the way Penix was throwing, he wasn't twisting his body at all. It looked like he might have broken a rib, which is super unfortunate. I hope that's not a broken rib and he can heal from that, because he's got pretty high draft stock from what I understand, and he should. He's a great quarterback. But that was kind of the game for me. I think Sharon Moore probably had his worst game of the season play calling, and that's not to knock him necessarily. That's to say that I think he adjusted away from things sooner than he needed to, and then didn't try other things when he should have. So the play action pass, the quarterback runs, they only did like one or two designed quarterback runs in the game, and really they should have been doing that probably halfway through the second quarter, when Washington at that point would have adjusted to Michigan's run game. But they really didn't do that, and I'm honestly not sure why. They should have done the QB run a lot sooner in the game, but you know, they didn't do that. So Michigan had plenty. That's all to say that Michigan had plenty of opportunities, I think, to honestly put a dagger in this game early in the third quarter, and didn't. And I think a lot of it was because of play calling. But obviously, massive respect to Washington for the adjustments they made, the amount of talent they have on that team, and the fact that while they didn't score as many points as they wanted to, obviously, they still held on to the ball for quite some time. I believe the time of possession was nearly even. Yeah, in fact, Washington had the ball for 30 minutes, 44 seconds, Michigan 29 minutes, 16 seconds. So Washington wasn't nearly the high-flying offense that we expected them to be. They did have to dink and dunk, but they were actually doing it pretty well there for a bit. But the game plan for Michigan, which the players said this, and I figured this would be it, don't let Washington get behind you. And that's exactly not what happened. Washington didn't really get behind Michigan. Washington only had attempted a few throws down the field and only completed one of them, really, that had any sort of meaningful gain to it, I think, or above 15 yards gained, I believe. Otherwise, they were dinking and dunking, and they were actually doing okay at it, but you could tell that's not what they wanted to do. They wanted to go downfield, but Michigan's coverages weren't letting them do that. So Michigan was perfectly fine letting them get into the red zone and settling for field goals. The problem is that I think Michigan was expecting to score more on offense than they did in the first 3.5 quarters. That's fine. If you're going to play a game of which defense breaks first, then obviously Michigan has the advantage there. Michigan's got a historic defense. So that makes sense why they would be okay with, or well, maybe not that they would be okay with just saying, the defense has it. We don't really need to do anything on offense, because you want to score on offense, obviously. But if you're going to be relegated, or if you're going to be forced to play a defensive game, then that's going to go in Michigan's favor every single time, because they just have that type of defense. I want to get to some of these statistics. These are going to be kind of out of order, so I'm just going to rattle them off kind of quick. Credit to a lot of different people on Twitter, and then especially Steve Dace from Michigan Podcast for these stats. I didn't want to just steal the stats from you, but I guess I kind of did. Sorry. All right, so from Cole Kubalik, he's from the SEC Network, I want to say. 303 rushing yards is the most in the CFP or national championship game. So Michigan had 303 rushing yards. That would have been good for any game. The fact that they got it in the national championship is wild. Donovan Edwards had 6 rushes for 104 touchdowns for 104 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's 17 yards per carry. Washington had the ball 12 times. Technically, they had it 13, but one of those was a kneel down at the end of the half. They had the ball for 12 drives and scored 13 points and only 1 touchdown. Prior to the game, they had the statistical best passing offense in the country with 350 yards per game. And in this game, only scored 13 points and put up only 250 yards passing. So 100 less than their average. Penix threw two interceptions, which is more than Washington had touchdowns, obviously. Corum and Edwards became the first running back tandem to each notch 100-plus rushing yards in the national title game since Eddie Lacy and T.J. Yeldon of Alabama did it in 2013, and the first to rush for 2 touchdowns apiece since Mark Ingram and Trent Richardson of Alabama did it in the 2010 BCS national title game. Michigan claims something like 12 national titles now, but I believe the AP or the NCAA only recognizes 10 of those now. Even so, they are now one of 5, I think, teams to win double-digit national titles. Michigan now has the longest winning streak at 15 after snapping Washington's streak of 21 straight. That's huge. That's really awesome. I love that one. Michigan is just the 4th 15-0 team in the CFP era. They also beat 5 ranked teams, including 4 ranked in the top 10 and 3 of those in the top 5 in their last 6 games. That is the most ranked teams defeated in the last 6 games of the season. And I believe the CFP era, I think it's actually since 2014. No, I'm sorry. What it is that's the most ranked teams defeated in the last 6 games of the season ever. Alabama had defeated, I believe, 4 in the last 6 games. That's what it was. Credit to whoever had that one. I can't remember who it was. Michigan is the first team to hold 15 different opponents to under 25 points in a single season since Minnesota did it in 1903, 120 years ago. Credit to the Twitter account AD for that one, although I think that originated elsewhere. I just don't know from where. Michigan finishes 2023 with the statistical best defense in terms of yards and points allowed. The 10.4 points per game allowed is the best in the Big Ten since 1997, the last time Michigan won the Natty. Now, here's what's kind of amazing. I'm going to start with a stat that I think is kind of, or a take from On3 that I think is kind of dumb, and then follow it up with a stat about Michigan's roster that should debunk it pretty quickly. On3, the sports network On3, reporter Andy Staples, I believe he's a reporter, says that he believes Michigan is going to be in the roster rebuild mode in 2024, and honestly, I don't see it. The reason why? This from Steve Dace from Michigan Podcast. Every Wolverine who threw a pass ran the ball. 3/4 of the players who caught the ball and 12 of the 17 players to record a tackle in the national championship last night have eligibility to play for Michigan next season. So that's like 3/4 of every player that stepped on the field last night can come back. The Rose Bowl and this game were, I think, two of Michigan's rockiest games on offense. Alabama makes sense. They've got a really good defense. Washington, I think, was a game plan issue. The man of the match, I think, has to go to Blake Corum. I understand that Donovan Edwards, or no, I'm sorry. I got that backwards. I think the man of the match really is Donovan Edwards because Michigan actually scored more in the first quarter than Washington did all game. So Michigan actually had this game won in the first quarter. Kind of. I mean, you still got to play. Washington could have come back, but Donovan Edwards really sparked it. And that's amazing. So man of the match goes to him. Jesse Minter absolutely must be the highest paid defensive coordinator in the nation within the next month, or else he's probably going to go to the NFL. I have faith that Michigan can replace a guy like him, but I definitely think that there will be a fall off. But Jim Harbaugh should go down in history as probably the greatest Wolverine ever, the greatest Michigan man ever. He played on, this is also from Steve Dace, so thanks a lot, Steve, for doing all the research for our show, I guess. He played for, although it's public knowledge, I just didn't want to look it up, or I guess I looked it up, but you're the one who gave it to me, so there you go. Jim Harbaugh played for Bo's statistical best team. He is also a Big Ten champion. He also was a Heisman finalist. He comes back to Michigan and under his coaching gives Michigan 3 straight Big Ten championships, a national championship, multiple Heisman finalists, I believe. I think he's got a few now. 3 straight victories over Ohio State and yeah, that national title. So I mean, he's got to be in contention for the best to have ever worn the Block M. And this Michigan team should go down in history as the best Michigan team ever. There's argument for they are the best football team this century. I don't know, because the last 2 games on offense weren't fantastic, but sure, we'll have the conversation. I mean, I'd love for that to be the case, but Michigan is the first national champion to lead at halftime in every game since Miami in 2001 per Cole Kubelik. And then Michigan has also set the record for most wins by a Big Ten team in a season since the University of Chicago did it in 1899. Now, they were playing high schools at the time, but still. I mean, this is history. This was a historic game. And it may very well be the end of an era. But also, if everybody who can come back does come back, why not? Why not 2024? I'm going to leave it there. I'm sure there's more I can say. I mean, like I said, the game was strange. It played out kind of the way I thought it would, that I think Michigan's defense really, really was going to be the X factor. And I think they were. They won the game because of defense. They didn't give Penix the time that he needed to throw the ball. They got to him a lot. They only recorded 1 sack, but boy, they hit him basically every play, I think. I mean, many plays for sure. I mean, they might have broken his rib. Jeez. But that D-line and that O-line, you win in the trenches, guys. Throughout the entire CFP era, we've seen teams with flashy wide receivers, amazing running backs, incredible quarterbacks, but Michigan just proved you still win. You can still win in the trenches. Bo's football philosophy still works today. And man, we loved this season. This has been a phenomenal season. Just for football in general, this was a crazy, awesome season. And I echo the sentiments of a lot of other pundits saying that I feel like football is on a sort of renaissance, a reemergence, if you will. Interest is way up, which is just great to see. Michigan participated in the 3 most viewed football games of this season, that being the Rose Bowl, the national championship, and the Ohio State game, in that order. Thank you so much for watching. Dad will be back tomorrow. Other than that, this is Michigan Chatter on the Big Ten Team Rivalry YouTube channel.
Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend watching football. Have fun watching football. Remember, #make football fun again. If you like what you saw, don't forget to like and subscribe and leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. This is Big Ten Team Rivalry.